My fiancée laughed at my Black Friday gift in front of her friends, so I gave it to someone else and left her with regret. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of our relationship, I genuinely believed my fiancée. Brianna loved how thoughtful I was. When we first started dating, I made her playlists for long drives. I'd leave sticky notes on her bathroom mirror before work that said things like, "You're going to crush your presentation today," or "Can't wait to hold you tonight." I'd show up with her favorite snacks during her period jalapeno kettle chips and dark chocolate. She'd bury her face in my chest and whisper, "No one's ever loved me this gently," and I believed her. Back then, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Brianna had this confidence that lit up a room, and I was the guy who usually stood in the corner watching people like her from afar. But she saw me, or at least I thought she did. We came from different planets. She was raised in a family where weekend getaways and designer handbags were normal. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. I learned to value effort, the little things, making a dollar stretch, turning a thrift store scarf into a Christmas gift. She once told me that my handmade gifts felt richer than anything money could buy. That version of her, the one who saw magic in simplicity, faded over time. It started slowly. Her friends from work would come over, and suddenly I was cute instead of romantic. They'd glance at my off-brand sneakers and ask if I'd ever tried wine from Napa. I remember one of them asking if I'd ever left the country, and when I said no, they exchanged a look that said more than their words ever could. Brianna didn't correct them. She just smiled, like she wasn't embarrassed, and that's when I started to feel it, that quiet shift. In how she saw me, I just didn't realize how far that shift would go. The change was gradual, so slow, it felt almost unnoticeable at first. But looking back, it's like someone dimmed the lights in our relationship one notch at a time. And I didn't realize I was sitting in the dark until I couldn't see her anymore. It started when Brianna got promoted at her marketing firm and started hanging out with a new group of coworkers. Suddenly, our Friday pizza nights turned into gallery openings and rooftop mixers. She'd ask if I wanted to come, but her tone was always off, like she was hoping I'd say no. And when I did go, I felt like an imposter in my own clothes. I remember one night vividly, her friend Mallory leaned in, wine glass in hand, and said, "So what do you do exactly?" "I work in IT support," I said, "mostly internal systems and cybersecurity." She blinked. "Oh, that's stable." Brianna didn't say anything, didn't jump in to defend me or add context. She just sipped her drink and changed the subject. That's when I realized these people weren't friends to her. They were currency, status, and in that world, I was a debit card in a room full of platinum Amex. She started making little comments. "Maybe try a button-down next time. Instead of your flannelette, just looks more polished." Or, "Can you not talk about your mom's hospital job? It brings the vibe down." At first, I laughed him off, tried to be understanding. She was navigating a new space, and I didn't want to hold her back. But what I didn't see then was that she wasn't just changing herself, she was slowly reshaping me too, into someone easier to present. And every time I made a compromise to fit in, I lost a little more of myself. I just didn't know how much more I'd lose before. It all came crashing down. One of the few things that still felt like us was black. Friday, it started our first year together. I stayed up late, online hunting for deals while Brianna snoozed under a heated blanket. I'd always find her something small but meaningful. That first year, it was a necklace with a tiny compass charm. I told her it was because she gave me direction. She cried when she opened it. Every year after that, she said it was her favorite tradition. So when this year rolled around, I clung to it like a lifeline. Things felt strained between us, like we were holding hands through a crack in a glass wall, but I told myself the tradition would help. That maybe, just maybe, the thoughtfulness would remind her who we were. Money was tight. My mom had just gone through a medical scare, and I'd helped cover some of her expenses. But I scraped together enough to buy something I knew Brianna would love, a vintage leather-bound journal, deep burgundy with her name embossed in gold. She used to write poetry when we first met. Said she dreamed of publishing one day, and the real prize, a signed first edition of The Secret Garden, her favorite childhood book. I found it through an old college professor who collected rare books. It wasn't flashy, but it had soul. I wrapped it carefully in brown paper and twine, added a sprig of pine to make it look rustic. I imagined her eyes lighting up like they used to, hands running over the texture. That soft "how did you even find this?" whisper. That image kept me going through every snide comment and distant kiss that month. What I didn't realize was that I was preparing a gift for someone who no longer believed in handmade magic, and the moment I handed it to her would change everything. Brianna told me she was hosting a little pre-holiday girls' night at our apartment, just a few friends from work, chassette wine, charcuterie, Secret Santa games. She asked if I could stop by Toyord, the end, to bring cookies. "Just say hi, be sweet, do your thoughtful boyfriend thing," she said. Kissing me lightly on the cheek, it sounded innocent enough. But something about her tone made me feel like I was a party favor, not a partner. I spent the whole afternoon baking her favorite, Cookies white chocolate macadamian, wrapped the gift with the kind of care only someone in love could understand. I tucked the vintage journal and the signed book into a box lined with velvet paper. I even hand-lettered a note on the inside cover, for the girl who taught me how beautiful quiet could be. When I arrived, the apartment was filled with laughter and perfume. Wine glasses clinked, heels clicked on hardwood, and a Spotify jazz playlist buzzed in the background. The whole place looked like an Instagram ad. Brianna greeted me with that tight, performative smile. "Ladies, my fiancé bearing cookies, of course." A few of them giggled, and one even said, "He's trained well." I forced a smile and handed her the wrapped gift. "This is for you." Early surprise, she opened it slowly, carefully, but I could already see yet the stiffness in her shoulders, the flicker of something behind her eyes. She pulled out the journal, held it up, and gave a small laugh. "Oh, wow," she said, turning to her friends. "He got me a diary and a children's book." Laughter bubbled up around the room like champagne fizz. One of her friends said, "That's so wholesome," with a tone like she meant cheap. Brianna looked at me, eyes dancing, and said, "He's so precious. It's like he thinks I'm still 12. And in that moment, I realized I was no longer the man she bragged about just the joke. She passed around the room. I stood there holding the now empty cookie tray, frozen in place while laughter echoed around me. Not the kind of laughter that warms a room, but the kind that chills your spine, the kind that lets you know you're the only one not in on the joke. One of Brianna's friends, the one with the sharp eyeliner and sharper tongue, chimed in, "It's kinda cute," in a middle school boyfriend way. Another laughed. "At least he's consistent poor, but sentimental." I wanted to disappear. I wanted the hardwood floor to split open and swallow me whole. I forced a laugh weak, brittle, and said, "Well, I thought it might bring back memories." Brianna didn't even look at me. She just kept flipping through the journal, then held up the book. "A signed copy," she said, snorting. "He must have gone all out at the thrift store." More laughter. I tried to make eye contact with her, just once. A glance, a flicker of acknowledgement, a silent apology, anything. "Wouldn't even see me," I muttered. Something about needing to get up early for work, and slipped out of the room like a delivery guy who overstayed his welcome. No one stopped me. No one even noticed. I sat in my car for nearly 30 minutes, the steering wheel cold under my hands. The smell of cookies still clung to my jacket. I replayed the scene over and over, each laugh a dagger, each silence a confirmation. The gift wasn't the only thing Brianna had unwrapped that night. She'd exposed what I meant to her now, not a partner, not a man she respected, just a punchline with a pretty bow. And that was the night something in me quietly, permanently cracked. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She was humming in the kitchen, pouring oat milk into her coffee, scrolling through her phone. I watched her from the hallway, half expecting her to pause and say something like, "Hey," about last night, but nothing, not even a glance. I finally broke the silence. "You know that really hurt, right?" She looked up, brows furrowed. "What did—" "Last night, the way you laughed at the gift, the way your friends talked about me." She let out a breathy laugh. "Oh my God, are you still upset about that?" "It was just a joke." That word, joke, landed like a slap. She added, "You're being really sensitive lately. I mean, it's not like I threw it away. I didn't know how to respond." My mind raced, trying to find the right words to explain that it wasn't about the gift. It was about being humiliated in front of people who already saw me as a charity case. But every time I opened my mouth, I could see she was already bracing to dismiss it. I spent weeks finding that book, I said quietly. She rolled her eyes. It's a kid's book, babe. You're the only one who thinks that's romantic. That stung more than anything, because she was the one who once told me that book got her through her parents' divorce, that it made her feel like magic could still grow in dark places. I was trying to honor that, but she didn't see it anymore. She didn't see me anymore, and in that moment, I stopped trying to explain my heart to someone who had already decided it was unremarkable. Something in me shifted, and I knew this wasn't going to be fixed with forgiveness. A few days later, I ran into Marisa, one of Brianna's quieter friends from the girls' night. She approached me hesitantly, like she wasn't sure I'd want to talk. Hey, can I say something? She asked, glancing around as if the walls might overhear. I nodded. Sure, she bit her lip. I wanted to say I'm sorry for last night. The way everyone acted it wasn't fair to you. Her words hit me in a way Brianna's never had. Somehow, an outsider could see what I couldn't, what I had been pretending didn't matter. Marissa's voice dropped. Honestly, I saw the way Brianna looked at you. It wasn't love. She seemed embarrassed, like she didn't know what to do with you being, well, genuine. I felt a jolt in my chest, equal parts relief and heartbreak. Relief that someone understood, heartbreak that it had taken someone else to say it aloud. She smiled, faintly sympathetic. You don't deserve that. Not from her, not from anyone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the party. Every laugh, every smirk, every dismissive glance. I realized that it wasn't just a joke. It was a pattern. And Brianna had been training me to shrink too, fit a version of myself she wanted everyone else to see. I'd spent months bending, accommodating, pretending I didn't notice the subtle digs, the sideways comments, the way her friend's eyes lingered with judgment. Now, hearing it from someone else made it undeniable. I was not only undervalued, I was being performed over, and with that, the anger began to rise, quietly but surely, beneath the hurt. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the plan started forming. I spent the next few days in a daze, replaying every moment, every laugh, every sideways glance. Something inside me shifted it. Wasn't anger exactly, but clarity. I realized I didn't want revenge that was messy or loud. I didn't want to yell, argue, or beg for respect. I just wanted my effort, my thoughtfulness, my heart to land somewhere it would actually matter. I sat at my desk, looking at the wrapped gift for the third time, the burgundy leather journal, the signed first edition of The Secret Garden. Everything was perfect, the care, the thought, the intention. But it wasn't going to her. Not anymore. Then I remembered my former literature professor, the one who taught me in college and always encouraged students from underprivileged backgrounds. She had a classroom of kids who loved stories, who would treat a book like treasure. That's who would value this, I thought, not someone who laughed at the magic. I sent her a message, carefully explaining the gift, why it mattered, and asking if she'd let it be part of her classroom library. Within minutes, her reply came, "This is incredible. They'll treasure it forever. Thank you for thinking of them." The joy in her words hit me harder than anything Brianna had ever said. For the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. Not triumphant, not smug, just right. I realized that giving isn't about being seen or validated. It's about impact. And this gift, this small token of thoughtfulness, would finally be appreciated that night. I cleaned the apartment quietly, placed a package in my car, and watched Brianna scroll through her phone in the living room, oblivious. She didn't know what I'd done. Didn't know that the gift she had laughed at would never touch her hands again. And that realization, that quiet power in my choice, felt almost like hope, like I was finally waking up from months of pretending. A few days later, Brianna started acting different, not hostile, not overly kind, just confused. Her texts were clipped. Her smiles didn't reach her eyes. She asked why I seemed distant, why I wasn't texting her every hour like I usually did. I replied politely, casually, keeping my tone neutral. Just busy. Work's hectic. But inside, I felt a quiet satisfaction. I wasn't cold, I was finally putting myself first. And she couldn't undo that then. At a casual dinner with some of her friends, I noticed the sideways glances, the hushed whispers that stopped when I looked up. One friend leaned toward another and muttered, "Something's off between them, huh?" Brianna laughed nervously, trying to cover it up. "We're fine," she said, voice too high, smile too tight. But I could see at the cracks forming. She was realizing, slowly and painfully, that the version of me she had treated like a joke was no longer available. I stayed calm, made small talk, nodded politely, but inside, I was steady, centered like a man who had finally stopped carrying someone else's judgment on his back, and as she stared across the table at me, flustered and confused, I knew this was the beginning of her watching me from the other side of a quiet wall I had finally built. She didn't know yet that the gift she had mocked was gone forever. Her parents threw an engagement party, insisting we invite everyone, family, friends, coworkers. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured I could endure one night of pretension. I kept the gift situation to myself, pretending everything was normal, while inside I felt a quiet tension building. During the party, Brianna gave a speech. She raised her glass and said, "He's not perfect, but he grounds me. I teach him class. He teaches me compassion." Everyone clapped, some even cheered, but something about her words made my stomach twist. I realized she was framing me not as a partner, but as a project, like she was molding me into someone to brag about rather than loving who I already was. I smiled politely, letting her words wash over me, but my mind raced. I could feel the anger simmering beneath my chestnut rage. Exactly, but the kind of fire that sharpens focus. Later, while she chatted with her friends, I noticed them glancing at me differently. Respect, admiration, not really curiosity, and maybe a tiny bit of envy that I had finally detached from being a punchline. The room felt warmer, louder, yet I felt isolated in a bubble of awareness. Brianna had unknowingly confirmed the truth. She didn't see me. She never had. Not the real me, the one who cared deeply and gave freely. And in that moment, I knew my next move wasn't just about a gift, it was about reclaiming my dignity. That night, when the apartment was quiet, I asked her directly, voice low but firm, "Do you respect me?" She froze, blinked, and then rolled her eyes. "What is this, a podcast episode?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm not asking for drama. I just need to know, do you respect me? Or am I just entertainment for your friends?" Her lips curled into a half smirk. "You're being dramatic. You're mad because I didn't worship your thrift store book?" I felt something in my chest snap, not anger, emptiness, like someone had pulled the rug from under me while I was still building the floorboards. I realized that everything I had believed about us, about how she loved me, was a lie. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just said quietly, "Okay." That one word hung in the air, heavier than any shouting match could have been. It wasn't defeated, was recognition. Recognition that the person I trusted most in the world had been laughing at me, and that she would never change. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling, staring at the floor. For the first time, I couldn't see a way forward with her. My heart ached, not just from betrayal, but from realizing I had invested years in someone who didn't see me at all, and in that silence, I felt the bitter truth settle in. I was at my lowest point, and everything I thought I knew about love had been stripped away. I waited until Brianna left for a work trip before making a move. Quietly, I packed my things, just the essentials. No dramatic gestures, no notes of blame. The apartment felt unusually cold, the walls echoing memories of laughter that had once been warm but now felt sharp. I left a single letter on the kitchen counter, explaining calmly that I couldn't stay with someone who used me as a punchline. No accusations, just truth. I also included a receipt from my former professor, showing that the Black Friday, gifter journal, and the signed book had been delivered to someone who truly appreciated it. She had laughed at it, yes, but now she would never get it. I didn't block her immediately. I left my email open for emergencies, but otherwise, I walked away from every shared digital space. Social media, chats, everything became mine again. The apartment was empty, but for the first time, I felt space in my chest instead of weight. That night, I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't even sleep restlessly. I just lay back, listening to the silence and realizing that the quiet exit had more power than any confrontation could have given me. And as I closed the door behind me, I felt it the first spark of freedom I had in months, maybe years. She tried everything. Texts came in waves. "Let's talk. I miss you. Please answer me." Voicemails left at all hours, her voice shaking between anger and pleading. She even showed up at my workplace once, eyes wide, like she couldn't understand why I wasn't bending, apologizing, or begging back. but I didn't respond. Not a word. Every attempt she made to reclaim control bounced off the walls I had built. For the first time, the guilt wasn't mine to carry. Then a message from one of her friends appeared. "Honestly, you did what most people only dream of. She doesn't deserve you." That hit harder than I expected, a strange mix of validation and relief. It got worse for her, I realized, because this wasn't about revenge. She was used to people groveling, begging for forgiveness, apologizing to soothe her ego. Now she had nothing. No reactions. No pleas. No submission. And then I learned something shocking. Brianna had a history. Past partners described the same pattern. She laughed at them, belittled their efforts, and wrapped it all up as playful teasing. I wasn't an isolated case. I was just the most recent. The truth settled like a stone in my chest, heavy but grounding. I had been blind to her patterns because I wanted to see the person she used to be, not the one she truly was. And finally, I realized I had not just walked away from I had escaped a cycle she had trapped others in for years. Months passed, I focused on my self-therapy sessions, working out, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, and diving into projects I'd always postponed. I even started volunteering at the school where my former professor taught, helping underprivileged kids discover the joy of reading. It felt good, right, to give without expecting anything in return. Then, one day, I posted a photo from a reading event, me holding an award for favorite guest reader, smiling at a room full of kids. And there it was, an unexpected notification. Brianna, her silent account. Liking the photo, I didn't block her. I didn't comment. I just let her watch. She could see it all, me, happy, respected, appreciated, thriving without her validation. And I knew she was realizing the gift she mocked, the heart she belittled, was exactly what she could never create or understand herself. I felt no bitterness, just calm satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about living fully, authentically, and allowing her the uncomfortable truth that I didn't need her. Recognition to feel valuable. And as I scrolled through the messages of gratitude from kids and colleagues, I realized she was watching from the outside, and for the first time, the power balance had shifted. She had laughed at me once. Now she was witnessing a life she could never touch. Used to think love meant enduring humiliation for the person you cared about. That loyalty was a shield, even if it hurt, even if it went unnoticed. But that laughter, Brianna's, her friends, even the tiny smirk that followed, taught me something I couldn't ignore. Real love doesn't mock you. Real respect doesn't require you to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. I realized my thoughtfulness, my patience, my effort, they weren't flaws. They were rare. And rare things don't belong to people who can't see their worth. I still give, still care, still invest in people and moments that matter, but only where it's reciprocated, only where it's valued. I don't regret my love for her, not entirely. It taught me discernment. It showed me the difference between someone who sees you and someone who just tolerates you for show. And in that clarity, I found peace. Not the shallow peace of avoidance, but the deep, steady kind that comes when you stop chasing approval and start honoring yourself. The girl who once laughed at me didn't get to define my value anymore. If you've ever been laughed at for caring, for trying, for putting thought into something that mattered, know this: you are not less. People who mock kindness, who belittle effort, are not measuring youth, they're revealing themselves. Brianna laughed. Her friends laughed. And for months I questioned my worth. But that laughter wasn't about me. It was about their inability to value sincerity, depth, or heart. I've learned that kindness is a currency you spend wisely, not a tool for validation. The gifts, the thoughtfulness, the sleepless nights, they matter. But they matter to the right people. I've started giving to those who see it, who cherish it, who recognize that someone who invests in others isn't weak, they're rare, they're precious, they're unstoppable. And as for her, she watches quietly from the other side, because now she understands something she never did. The man she mocked has grown, thrived, and left her small world behind. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't post, yell, or confront. I just lived. My life became the message. Every success, every smile, every story I shared without needing approval was a quiet triumph. So to anyone reading this who's ever been laughed at for loving, for giving, for being too much, Don't shrink. Don't dim. Don't compromise your value for someone who can't see it. Your worth is not theirs to define. Your heart, your effort, your love. They are precious. Keep them safe, share them wisely, and watch as the world finally recognizes the power in what they once mocked. And one day, someone who never valued you will realize exactly what they lost, and by then, you'll be unstoppable.